Jennifer, hey, congratulations for the second son.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, what attracted you to towards a project like the second son?
Well, I worked on it for about 3.5 years as a play. I kind of acted as a dramaturg and director, so I created it with the writer. He came to me with an idea. It wasn't fully fleshed out, and then we just started workshopping it. And we did it for, as I said, for about 3.5 years. We took it all over New York to different festivals. We ended up at the Signature Theater off Broadway, which is the last place we did it. And then somebody who'd seen it said, I think you should make this into a film. And I thought, it's a two-hander. And I spoke to the writer, and he came back about a year later and brought me a screenplay and said, I've opened it up somewhat. What do you think? And I love it. So it was my first feature, and that's what, but what attracted me to it was its themes of miracles and redemption and second chances and love and romance, all of those things.
Absolutely. Now, what are some of the transitions from the play to screen? Because obviously, there's one thing to see it as a play, but you have to make it into some kind of cinematic quality.
Right. Well, the flashbacks are all, they don't exist obviously in the play. The dance sequence doesn't exist in the play except for the mop. It's not a dream. It happens in real time. The bartender didn't exist in the play, so that's a new character. And all of the characters that he talks about don't exist in the play. The play is a two-hander, so he opened it up and brought about five new characters to it.
Oh, wow, excellent. So let's talk about how you handled some of the scenes. First of all, let's talk about the flashbacks, because the flashbacks wasn't in the play, but but when you created the flashbacks, you're talking about World War II, which was just a few years before, but you filmed it in like black and white in comparison
Mhm.
to the rest of the film in color. Could you talk about that move?
I actually didn't film it in black and white. I filmed it in color, and then when I was in the editing room, I didn't feel it worked. And I said, I want to saturate the whole thing. I want to try it in black and white. So we turned it into black and white. And for me, just that period worked much better, in those muted tones. It brought you there, I felt, whereas the film in present time, in the 50s, feels very, even though it's muted, it feels vibrant. There's a vibrancy about the colors of her dress, of her lipstick, of her of the bar itself. There's a vibrancy, and I've looked at the war in a sense in black and white, because I wasn't alive then. I didn't know what that was like, and so it's always seemed a distant, part of the world.
Talk about creating that period piece, because you technically you created two periods, during the war and after the war, which
Mhm.
is to most people they could barely tell the slight difference. But talk about what you wanted to do to make sure that you kept to those things.
Well, the 50s is a very specific time, and the style, everything about it was, we were coming out of the war. So as I just said, things were very vibrant. Colors were very sharp and hot, because we had come out of a period of such, there was a certain olive green to the 40s because of the war. There was that feeling of, armies, that feeling of khaki, and so I feel that in the 50s we sort of went boom, we burst out of that, because we had to have a response to what had just happened. So I feel people like, you know, we were oppressed, but I mean, the 50s were a very repressed period, but which is very interesting about the film is that this is a woman who doesn't want to be repressed. This is a woman who is way before her time and wants to have a life of her own and not be this housewife and this mother. And you know, at that time, it was not only frowned upon, it was, you basically put an A on your chest, you were a Scarlet Woman. I remember my parents had some people they knew, cousins actually, and this man had married my mother's cousin, and he had been married to a fashion designer, and they had 2 children. And this was in the 70s. And when my mother would talk about them, she would whisper because this woman left her children in the 70s to have a bigger life for herself. And she, even though she saw her children and loved her children, when she came to whatever festivity there was, if it was a bat mitzvah or a birthday or whatever, it was like she was looked at as the Scarlet Woman for leaving. And so I think that that's a very, it's an important part of this movie because nobody did that in the 50s. And then you find out what the price that she pays for making that decision. And, you know, that was what always was the message then. It's like, you're gonna get killed for this. Something's gonna happen bad because you made the wrong decision that's not based on your child, not based on your husband, you know, putting yourself first. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, it's such an intricate story itself. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Tell me about the music selection that you know, that was being played by the record player. I mean, how did you find it? I'm not very familiar with the music at those times.
Well, I had a great music supervisor, and he you know, we used to be creative partners on other projects, and he was a producer on this, and he had picked great music for this series that I did called In Between Men that he had created, and I always knew he had a great sense and ear for music, what belonged in. So I gave him free rein to pick. I had scored it for the play that I did, and then he took off of that and found other music. Music we could afford, because I used Benny Goodman's Sing, Sing, Sing. you couldn't use that for this movie. So he found things similar to what, you know, that was in the public domain. And then we found a beautiful composer, Ed Bilius, who did our score. And I just think he did a brilliant job in scoring this movie. The music it haunts me still.
It's wonderful. And lastly, could you talk about your 2 leading actors? Because obviously it was a 2-person play, but for the movie, your 2 leading actors basically were in the spotlight with Eden and John. Could you talk about why they were perfect for their roles?
Well, Eden had done the play. She'd worked on it with me for over those 3.5 years. She was a student of mine. She came to me at 19 years old. And she was so naturally gifted, and I had put her in this play as a workshop, and he originally wrote it. The man originally wrote it for an older woman, and I said, no, there's this girl that I just know can kill this, and she did, and so she'd been working on it with me throughout her studies, throughout her college years, throughout. You know, she graduated. She was still at NYU when we were working on the play, and then she did a movie that I produced called Blind, and then we did this. And John, interestingly enough, saw this play when we did it at the Signature Theater. Came up to me after the play and said, "Would you mind if we just kind of read this play together with me?" And he had such an idea of how this man should be played. He had such a connection to Max that even the man who wrote it, possibly because John's Jewish, half Jewish, and you know, on his dad's side, which was a strong influence, he connected with this man truly, and he said, would you mind if we did that? And I said, well, the man who wrote it for himself, and he's been doing it for 3.5 years, so I'm not sure I can make that work, but I'll just give it a shot. I'll listen to the two of you read it. And I had 3 other people in the room who I really respected, and respected their opinion. And we all kind of went, oh my God. It's like their chemistry was off, And so that's how I ended up doing it. It was a hard call because the man who had written it was beautiful in the part, but he just wasn't as right as John was.
Yeah.
So that's how it all came to be.
I think it was good chemistry. And one more thing before I let you go. Usually,
Yeah.
I would ask you if you wanted to do this again, but obviously you did direct a feature film again with.
Yeah, I directed Diary, which came out in August 25th. So it's out on all platforms. And John has a small part in that, and the woman Claudia Marie Mailer, who played the mother in Second Son, again, an unbelievably gifted young actor. And I said, when I put her in Second Son, I said, I'm going to put you in something that's going to, showcase you. And we, Diary happened that way, because I love to find talent. Brian De Palma and Mike Nichols said that 90% of filmmaking is casting. And as I've done this more and more, I know that's 100%. You put the right actor in the role, your job is easy.
Absolutely. Sounds like you have a great experience on both films. Well, Jennifer, thank you very much for this conversation. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to your next film, your third film.
Thank you. Thanks. Spread the word about Second Son.
Not a problem. We will. Thank you very much. Bye now.